back in 2020, Council received an unsolicited proposal from Mark Taplin in regards to in-principle support around his Bluff Marina proposal. It was first presented to Council in December and then subsequently came back in April 2021, where Council actually did resolve to provide some in-principle support for the purposes of Mr Taplin actually engaging with the state government around his proposal. Mr Taplin has progressed over through stage one, really, of our unsolicited proposal, and it's an opportunity for Mark, now that he has actually released and presented his proposal more broadly to the community, to come back and update our new elected members and those returning elected members in regards to his project going forward. So thank you, Mark.
Yep, thank you very much. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to present this. I received approval about 2 years ago to proceed with the next stage, which was then presented to the approval of the submission of my concept plan, which was then presented to the council and it was approved, and then to take it to the next stage, which was the unsolicited bids scheme with the government. I spent some time with the government going through a couple of meetings, and that was the Department of Treasury and Finance and the unsolicited proposal for the Bluff Marina of Encounter Bay. The government came back, the then Liberal government said the proposal was not unique, and which I don't know how they can say what's unique and what isn't, but I had no option to address them or appeal. And I'll read what his letter is. The committee agreed that the proposal should be referred and considered directly with the Department of Environment and Water within its Crown Land section. And I was then contacted and had liaison with the Department of Environment and Water, and that was Piers Brissenden, the General Manager of Crown Lands Department. And this letter, which has all been passed on to Council, the development is proposed as the area known as a bluff at Victor Harbour, comprised of Crown land dedicated to the Victor Harbour Council pursuant to the Crown Land Management Act. The dedication is intended to provide for the land to be reserved for community purposes and for the land receives a community land classification according to the Local Government Act. In order for the land to be sold, the council would need to resolve or to revoke this community land classification and dedication on the land. This would require ministerial decision. Community consultation may also be undertaken to inform council and the minister prior to any decision. Alternatively, the council should seek to purchase all or portion of the land under dedication in order to determine an appropriate way to realise the development. I therefore encourage you to continue the liaison with the council to enable a better understanding of their intentions. I told it wasn't acceptable, and so council then engaged a consultant, made it quite clear after I met with him and I went along to two of their consultation meetings, made it quite clear he would not, and also in the meeting with council next door, he would not support any development anywhere around the Bluff precinct. Even though they called for a community submissions, mine was refused. I met with him after, bear in mind with this, there's over 100 pages here of reports, environmental processes, the marine ecology, the business case for it, there's engineers, there's costings, there's tourism impact, job creation, all those impacts there as well. It's quite an involved process and took me quite some time and expense. So even though the community mine were refused, I met with North Rise Council staff member who told me that I have to fund my own community consultation separate from theirs at my expense, and they would not be including this in their consultation plan. I explained that this would make council look pretty silly in the eyes of the ratepayers and also the state government who ran the story. This is the and the local, I then was forced, because I was getting no assistance from council, to go to social media, which I did, and along with the local media. And now I've been told that council had around 700 odd submissions on their proposal or their, the submission things, and most of those, in fact I'd say nearly all of them, were little post-it stick-on notes, of which I even filled out 6 of them myself. And as far as the written submissions to council, I've been told that it's less than 20. Now I've gone out on social media, I have over 750 written submissions showing profiles of all these people, and there has been an equal number of likes. Of that, I was calculating and keeping records of it all. It was running around 80% in favour of a process of development down in the Encounter Bay area and improving the area. And the page was closed down because of the vile comments were made by some trolls, and also the environment movement who got quite personal. And so that social media, Victor Harbour social media, is now taken down and won't post anything to do with council discussions. In fact, even tonight, somebody told me, they said they've put a submission on there about a cruise ship, that's the Ovation of the Seas, the largest cruise ship coming to Adelaide, and that was also taken down off the social media this evening. So anyway, I feel that I've done my bit, and I've also gone out there to get a pretty good gauge of reactions. But following the media report on the advertiser on Thursday morning, and then the subsequent news with the ABC, it became apparent that there is a great deal of interest in this, not just locally wise but state-wise, in many, many stakeholders. It was just staggering, the response that I've had since then. The phones have not stopped. There's been emails, text messages, share Facebook things. They've been tagging me. I've had meetings continually. I've had a contact with the state government on 2 occasions with the Deputy Premier. Tourism Department, South Australian Tourism Commission, has notified me saying they have collated all this information and they're sending it direct to the Tourism Minister. This has all come out of me going socially because I didn't get the support of council. So it's for those who, for the new councillors who may not know of this, or just on the other media thing that's come out of this, I've been approached, and probably the biggest number of people who have approached me have been angry ratepayers, both that live locally and from Adelaide, who did not know anything of the development in Victor Harbour, and certainly don't know anything about this consultation plan. They were angry to think, I've been a resident and I've been paying rates for 20 odd years and I have not been informed. So how we can say this is a community consultation when so many of the residents and ratepayers have not been consulted? My way of just going out there in that very short time of only 3 days, having 750 written submissions and council spending around $40,000 on this report, and you've had less than 20 submissions, written submissions, then I think it says volumes as to the interest with this. And I don't think we can ignore it. It's not just the marina, but it includes several tourism-related businesses, like a 1,000-seat convention centre. One of the meetings I had yesterday was that someone associated with the convention centre, and they said there is no other convention centre in South Australia in a regional area, certainly not within an hour's drive of Adelaide. And they will be working, and they'll be getting onto their contacts to say we'll be working with the Adelaide Convention Centre to bring these people down here. One of the biggest support things I've had from the social media about this has been the interest from young families who have moved into the area where there is now a huge influx of school kids, not just in Victor Harbour, down at Goolwa, who are bored because there's nothing to do, particularly on a rainy day, and they would love to see things like a picture theatre, bowling alley, kids zone, and things like I'm proposing a tidal pool, restaurants, apartments, a hotel, the infinity pool and boat ramp and cruise ship mooring. But the thing with the kids and the family is that it's not just these things that they can do after school and on weekends. All the day trippers coming down here, the million people a year that come down here to Victor Harbour, I think they can only walk over to Grand Island so many times and catch the horse tram so many times. They are looking for something else to do. And there is massive numbers of those kids, not just bored in the current schooling age at the moment, but when they leave school. Those parents have said to me, they are looking for jobs. They want their kids to stay in the area. They want to be involved. And so we have got to acknowledge that. We have got no industrial base, we've got no seaport, we've got no fishing industry. Our rural base is only limited. We never will be an industrial base, and the only employment we've got are for these small businesses that employ maybe 1 or 2 people. The biggest employment of the younger generation is in the hospitality sector. In this report that I've got here, and I've made it quite clear for quite some time, there's 1,300 jobs during construction of this and 500 permanent jobs afterwards, most of which will be for the younger school age people that we have got to consider. And so I have, in a way, had this with liaison for quite some time, and I've been in contact with so many people expressing their need for it. Environmentally wise, nothing will be built on the bluff or in the neck of the bluff at all. I'm not interested in touching that. I am very hot on the collar about this as far as 2 iconic areas of Victor Harbour as the Grand Island and the Bluff, and they should not change. This apartment building and all these things will not impact on the Bluff at all. It is to be excavated in the land behind Whalers. Bear in mind, Whalers is between 8 and 9 stories above sea level, and that is going to be excavated, and the rock and the fill will be used to create new car parks for the boat ramp and car parking for buses, RVs, and also for the marina itself. I've had those 3 environmental reports done, and I've certainly expanded on that, but one thing that's become clear on that environmental angle, the government has told me, and some of the departments that I have spoken to, that if council, for example, said, we now will pass this on to you, the state government, because it's your land. Doesn't matter what council vote on here, if state government say they want to pursue this, they will. It's ministerial decision, and it's something the cabinet will make. All I'm asking this as council to do is look at this, give valuable feedback to the state to say what the priorities are with this council and what we should do. Now, with this environmental angle as well, I've chased up with the Aboriginal thing. There is no sacred sites or nothing on that land that I'm developing, and they've given me the reasons which I can easily elaborate on, but basically the ground was rock hard, it was too windy. On the early photographs of this area, there is no trees on that area. They didn't fish there because they didn't need to. They could just go down to all this fishing thing at King's Beach, but they lived in the area around Kent Reserve where they could spear the fish in the water. There was no need. They didn't make canoes. They didn't go out fishing in the ocean in front of the bluff. And there's no mizens there in the entire area that I'm looking at, and certainly no barrels because of this rock. The seagrass report that I've had done shows that this is actually going to be an advantage by putting in breakwaters, because we believe, or he believes, because we're not doing any dredging at all, either inside the marina or outside, that the sea dragons will have a habitat in that protected water, because the pylons there for the marina will cause the kelp to grow and that's what encourages leafy sea dragons. The big public beach that I'm looking at putting in there is open to families, so that we can have another idea that someone put to me was that expanding the beach around there, making it bigger, wider, longer, and have on there barbecue, seating, shelter, so that the families can go down there, sit in sheltered area behind the bluff, miss out all the southwest and northwesterly winds, and they can go snorkeling out there. They'll probably have seals come around like I've experienced a couple of times, and experience the leafy sea dragons. The other important part was the coastal process assessment, which focused on the environment changes or any potential changes should those rock walls be built, which would be under the control of the state government. Spiros Dimos from the environment down here in this room was advising on the council on the mooring of cruise ships in Victor Harbour, has been very helpful with this, and said this will be an advantage to Victor Harbour. He's advised me as to the process that will be open, and how there's also no impact on the surrounding area. This report shows that because there's no dredging involved, that the both inside and outside the marina, both before and after, but where the cruise ships plan to have cruise ships mooring on the outside, the current that's going through around the bluff will self-clean the base of the ground there, because there is no rocks, there's no seaweed, it's just sand. That sand will get pushed around the rock wall into Encounter Bay and assist around there past the boat ramp. He's given various options in here, saying it's up to the marine section of the marine and harbours people to advise, but the other angle with environmental wise, I don't think many councillors and also the public are aware that this year councillors spent close to $1 million in environmental repairs in Encounter Bay alone. They've spent $450,000 in repairs of the rock wall and the sand erosion that's occurred in front of Ilki. There was $350,000, and I'm quoting these figures from what I've been told, $350,000 in dredging the boat ramp, which is going to be an ongoing cost, because it's clear to me that the way the sand and sea is moving past the boat ramp, while council built that boat ramp there with the rock wall, sand and seaweed is piling up behind there. He's told me that 5 years' time, that entire section behind the rock wall is going to be filled with sand and seaweed, and we are paying the price for that already, because that sand and seaweed was supposed to be going around the bay, around and finishing in front of Ilki. That hasn't happened. It's all piling up behind the rock wall. My intention is to say, let that coastal movement be restored, fill that land behind the rock wall, create a car parking in there to assist with whalers. We've got massive problems down there with boaties that are just so angry, and they've expressed that to me, that as far as their boat parking and the residents and particularly the whalers restaurant there, that they have people cancelling bookings because people can't get a car park there, and they've been getting fines from council to say, when they say, where the hell else are we supposed to park? Well, this fixes it. So anyway, to me, it's a kind of a no-brainer.
Do you have some slides to take the members through the
I've
proposal,
got those
Mr Taplin?
up here. I don't know how I can go through all those. Well, this is just the impact thing, showing there's 1,230 jobs during construction, 512 jobs afterwards. The GDP increase in Victor Harbour, the entire Victor Harbour is around 15%. And what we're looking at doing is getting around $45 million in federal government grant for tourism infrastructure support for areas particularly with tourism and jobs, which is what we do. So a lot of these things here are all kind of old hat. That was one of the old sketches we had done. I can't see. I provided a lot of other stuff to council, not just this consultation report. This was the old one, but heaps of slides and things like that. I've actually got, there's one here of drone photographs of a USB. Can that be plugged in so at least show the...
We can give it a go. I think that's probably the next step, Mr Taplin, after tonight's presentation. Obviously, half of our members have not seen your formal proposal, other than that's what's been shared in the media. Yeah. And you were at stage one of presenting your unsolicited bid proposal to council, in which you did provide, in principle, support for the purposes of you speak to state government. So I'd say now that you've had the opportunity to do that, it's a matter of bringing that feedback that you received from the state government back to the chamber, so the council can then give your proposal some further consideration. Yeah. Just might want to clarify that we haven't done any dredging of the Bluff boat ramp this year at all.
Yeah. Well, it's, the report shows that it is filling up, even after it's been dredged recently. It's filling up with sand. One of the drone photographs that I've got shows that sand is already filling back in there. There is also and I know the guys that did the excavation in there originally, there is a huge sheet rock that cannot be moved in that ramp facility, and a lot of the larger boats, one of which that called up to my house yesterday and said, I bottomed out there with my boat just trying to get in there, apart from the fact that it took him an hour to moor. On this whole proposal is that we have I'm not asking council or this community for any money at all. We're getting $45 million, hopefully, federal government infrastructure support grant, which is going purely to infrastructure, which nearly all that work and expense will be going on community-owned assets afterwards. State government is not asked to contribute any money at all. They're just going to make the land available, and it's for me and council to work in with state government to find out what the community want, where the demand is, how we can do it sensibly, and come to a decent solution that's going to look at not just next year's budget for the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the track. Because this council, this area is so far behind. We've got to do something now.
Can I just ask you a question?
Sure.
I'm interested to know, so last time council gave you principal support to go to the state government and talk to them. I'm interested to get that update as to what they said. So that's the first question. The second question is why you're saying council doesn't need to put any money into this. Roads like Franklin Parade, Jagger Road, all of those roads around there which are council-owned roads and council-owned infrastructure will be impacted by this. And I'm wondering whether or not you've done a cost estimate as to in what way the rates of the residents of Victoria will have to go up in order to pay for that increase in transportation and council infrastructure that will be impacted. So that's the second question, but I'm interested in the first one first. Have you spoken to state government?
Yes, and as I said in my correspondence back to you, and they've given to me, I therefore encourage you to continue to liaise with the council in order to better understand their intentions. So council, the way of their liaising with me was to cut me out of the consultation process as if they didn't want to development, and was against what both the council voted and what the government wanted and what they advised and outlined. So that's why I was forced to go public. I was getting no support as far as liaison from this council at all. So I was forced to go public.
Sorry, Mr Taplin, I think the council's Bluff master plan, which I think you seem to be confused about, the council actually endorsed to undertake that Bluff master plan to look at the Bluff in its entirety. It didn't endorse your proposal to go out for consultation, so they are two separate projects. And it's not to say that this chamber won't support that, but it hasn't actually got to that stage as yet. And that's where I think the confusion is. They were two very different projects. Council hadn't endorsed your project as its own.
I think it's just coincidental, isn't it, that I come to the council, come to the administration of this council and say, this is what they've been recommended to do, that we have community consultation, because their letter is what you've got. And then very shortly after that, council comes up with a community consultation, but they don't want anything to do with me. It's to do with the Bluff. This is to do with the Bluff. I've got $350, $400 million development here. Doesn't that mean anything to you?
Not about it being into me, it's to the chamber, councillor.
Sorry, you just said that they're two separate consultations, potentially two separate consultations.
They're two different projects.
So
One is council's project, the other is Mr
So there's been
Taplin's.
no public consultation regarding Mr Taplin's.
No, because it's not council's
All right.
project.
So can I just ask then, Mr Taplin, you were on the ABC radio a few days ago one morning, and I was listening very intently, and you went in and basically said everything you said now, and then we heard from our next. So I'm just wondering, if there's been no consultation, how do we know that we aren't interested in this? That's my question. Do you feel that interview possibly prejudiced?
Councillor Rivera, that's I said that, and I will say again, that the Bluff Master Plan, that the community was overwhelmingly wanted the Bluff to remain wild and increase paths, and that this was not part of the Bluff Master Plan. Mr Taplin himself has said that this won't impact on the Bluff. He said, we're not going to destroy the Bluff at all, we're not doing anything with the Bluff. It's a separate project to the Bluff Master Plan.
It doesn't the actual, I think it's part 2 of the Bluff Master Plan is where your project would actually act, so it would actually act.
Well, he said himself, his words were...
No, I'm saying it would actually sit behind, so when we break down the Bluff Master Plan, it doesn't preclude the area that Mr Taplin's talking about.
Oh, absolutely,
Right.
and the people...
So I'm asking, we haven't gone out to consultation. I've had a lot of people call me and say...
Please. I'm happy to get the...
Is that...
It's not
I've got the transcript.
It's not a courtroom and it's not under judgment. No. The council has not endorsed Mr Taplin's proposal as a project it wishes to partner with Mr Taplin.
Yeah.
It may do that, but it hasn't had the opportunity.
I understand
and that may happen.
Isn't it a bit misleading to say the community don't want this when they actually haven't even seen it?
Well, it's up to
Is
Mr
that-
Taplin.
Well,
that's
well, exactly.
It's
And
Mr. Taplin's
the
project.
feedback that I've had from media, and it's not just been local media, it's been the Adelaide media as well, and the people that are calling up saying, I thought council hadn't voted against this, they were in favour of it. And yes, they voted for me to go through to the next process. So, and if they voted against it, said no. And what about this community consultation? Well, no, I wasn't included. This project wasn't included in that consultation, even though that I've done all this work to assist council in making a decision and it decided not to be included. So how can the mayor say it is overwhelmingly against a proposition like this?
I don't think the mayor referenced at all that she said that. It wasn't overwhelmingly, but as I said to you, you have the opportunity to go through to stage 2 of an unsolicited proposal for this chamber to choose whether it wishes to support your proposal. But it's no different to anyone that comes up with a great idea, and yes, you have invested significant funds, and I know there is a number of people who are supportive of your project, but it needs to come back through the appropriate process. And at this stage, council supported you to present your proposal to the state government. The council wanting to see what state government's thoughts were on this. We have not seen any of that.
Well, I've told you, they want to hear from council. It is fine, it's been in your court for nearly 2 years. Nothing has happened. I haven't had any feedback, liaison, anything. So, I've been told to go out and fund my own. So do I go out now and fund my own consultation plan? Or will council then have to now go out and do one themselves, another one?
It needs to come back to the chamber so the council can decide if it supports it or not. And at this stage it has supported you for state government discussions. Councillor Kemp.
Thank you. Thanks, Mark. CEO, I was wondering next steps then. What is the process that has to be followed now? Could you explain the next steps for following the process for stage 2 of the unsolicited policy. My understanding of the policy is about a developer comes to council with an idea and concept and looks at partnering council in the project. And you've done stage 1, and now we're looking at stage 2. So that process, for some reason, hasn't happened, but we're hoping that will happen now. And I guess we need to understand how that process will take place, because the partnership with council might be just doing a small amount, but not investing money, but being part to the whole process and looking at it. So if you just explain to the community and the world of the new in the next phase, how that will operate.
Yes, I need to go back and review where we're at in terms of the information we already have from Mr Taplin. If there's any new information now that we've had a new change of government, copies of the documentation that he's received from those various bodies, and bring that back to the chamber.
You've got it. You've had it.
The
You've had it for 2
chamber
years.
can make a decision as to whether it wishes to progress to the next stage.
Is there any thinking process of timelines do you think this may take place? 4 weeks, 2 months before it comes to us? Or what meetings do you need to have with Mr Taplin to make them?
Well, we have had, not myself, but I know Mr Taplin was invited separately as a stakeholder to the consultation on the Bluff Master Plan. Information that Mr Taplin provided as a part of that was included in the Bluff Master Plan. So I need to ascertain what information we do currently have and what new information Mr Taplin has provided. I'm not sure in terms of a time frame. It possibly could come to the March or April meeting, but again, it's a matter of the council, as Mr Taplin said, it's not council land. It's whether council is giving in principle support or looking to invest in further consultation with its community on Mr Taplin's proposal. That's the chamber's decision.
Thank you for that. It gives more clarity around the process of what we have to take place. I think, as soon as we can get this out to the community and under stage 2 of the unsolicited policy, get some feedback from the community, if this is going to fly or not fly, I think we need to do that, because one of the things is we talk about that expectation of our community of services that we want. We need injection of a major development to actually give those services to us. And whatever the development is, whether it's Mr Taplin or the Anchorage or some other multinational group will come in and do something. But I think we need to progress this now to get to us to have a better understanding and get feedback from the community in time, and then see what happens after that. And I think our community will tell us what's the best options, and also from an economic development point of view as well, because it injects into our community large sums of money and supports business and growth and provides the services, additional services that we need for our community. I think this may be a game changer, but again, I think that now we understand the next stages, what you just explained. I think we can get that information back to us to make a decision around about April. I reckon would be fantastic.
The other step, I'm not sure whether Mr Taplin has looked to, is a development approval. So as with other major developments, any developer usually goes through a development application. So independently, some developers will do all the process themselves and promote their development independently of council on land that's within council's boundaries, or they may look to partner, as we did with the Anchorage. And if Mr Taplin's looking at that, I don't know what that partnership arrangement is like, but the majority of those responsibilities sit with the developer.
It's quite clear, as I said on there, this is Crown land, state government, not council. I can't go out there and buy it. Council can certainly put in tender to buy it, but provided they have community consultation on those things as well. But I cannot go out there, nor is it, so I've spent enough time and money on this now, 20 odd years of research, and to go out there now and get an architect to go out there and do all sorts of fancy drawings when I don't even own the land, nor does council. And I gave an undertaking to the government and also this council that I liaise with you to get the community feel for it, what they are wanting, where the demand is, go out to the tourist operators, all those big players involved, not just the horrible thought of say just a marina. It is a lot bigger than that. And so we've got to really engage with everybody, which I have a pretty good feel for now. And so I cannot, and nor can a developer, be in a position where they can go out and get a development plan, because development approval, it doesn't exist on Crown land. It needs council assistance and support before they will consider going further, unless the Premier's Department and Cabinet come out and make a major project ruling and overrule council. So we've got a choice now that we can say, do we engage with this particular project and say this is what we want, and then come back to council, working with me, come back to council, get them to check it out, then send it off to the government to say this is what the community and council want to see for this area, and do you want to be involved with it? We'd really love to be involved.
Councillor Corbett, did you have a question?
Yeah, so you were saying, so it can potentially become a major project which circumvents any input from the council, is that correct?
Yes, there's a process which we had to go through, and they recommended was the unsolicited bids proposal, which I came to this council for initially, and went through the confidentiality meetings, and then it was taken to the government, to the Treasury and Finance for that unsolicited bids proposal.
I think it's clear there's two separate unsolicited proposals. The one the state government has for unsolicited proposals on their land, and we have a proposal for unsolicited bids within our council area. So there's two separate ones, and I think my understanding is that you were asked by the state government to go through their unsolicited bid proposal. Is that correct? And
they recommended they come back to go through the Department of Environment and Water and to still once again liaise with council.
Has that commenced?
Well, that was when was
so
this
that's
letter
information
here?
that could be very advantageous to bring back to the chamber when we bring the report back.
This letter here gives you an idea. The 16th of March 2022. So that's how long we've been dealing for, and the council have had this correspondence.
Councillor Corbett?
I know when we've discussed developers coming in and gifting the council things as part of the development, council sometimes have left with things to maintain and repair, and I'm sure there'll be some of that in this project. But is there anything potentially in this development that may be gifted to the council to circumvent those costs or valuating to the council?
Well, I was just thinking along the lines just for that car parking in front of the whalers and the problems we've got down there at the moment, and the same with the boat ramp and things like that. They're all part of the things that I'm looking at with this community infrastructure support for tourism purposes, things like that, and getting all that excavation, all the roads, the services, everything that's required in order to get the infrastructure for the community, for council, at the federal government cost. And this is part of the process. Once we go through the council procedure, we then engage the state government and say, now look, you guys, the federal government won't take on board any application unless we've got state government and the council together on this to say, we want not just 45 million, but we want 55 million, because we have to incorporate fixing up the roads of Three Gullies Road or to the Franklin Parade. Whatever this council decides, they put that in a submission to the state government, and then it goes to federal. You've got better chance of getting more money from federal government. Now, from the contact I've had with them, they said this is a drop in the ocean, but you just got to identify where it's going to go and how you want it spent. That's up to this council to come up to do.
Oh, thank you, Mr. I'll just take one more question because I'm conscious of time. We've got other people that are presenting tonight to the chamber, so I'll take some questions and then we need to bring this to a close. Councillor Burns?
Just for clarification, obviously we're a new council, this is the first time a lot of members are seeing this. You mentioned before that there were two separate proposals, one for state government and one for council. Are they not part of the same?
No, unsolicited bid policies. So the state government has its own unsolicited bid policy in which it will receive development ideas and visionary ideas that that developers may wish to do on state government land or within its bounds. So it has its own policy, state government, sorry.
I understand that different policies and processes, but I'm saying it's not the submission we've seen. What was
I'm not sure. So we received Mr Taplin's original submission. I think the resolution of council was April 2021, where we provided within principle support to go to the state government. By the look of some of the images that came out in the media and the images we first seen, I think it has changed a little. I'm not sure, so I think that's what we would need to have presented to the chamber with an update.
The other clarification was you mentioned that what Mr Taplin had submitted was included in part of the Bluff consultation with the public, but earlier you said that it wasn't included, so I'm a bit, I just want
No, Mr Taplin was engaged as a stakeholder.
Yep.
Because at the time, council was aware that he had interests in the Bluff, and so our staff did speak to Mr Taplin about the Bluff master plan.
Okay, so it's really focused on the Bluff master plan, not to
Correct.
do with Marina.
It wasn't to do with the
So there
marina.
hasn't been any consultation with the community at this point.
Not on the marina, no. So it's not council's project. Councillor Mann?
Thank you, and thank you,
I'm sorry.
Mr. Taplin. Sorry, I'll
Yeah.
try and be quick. Just to clarify a few things and just make sure I've got everything sort of straight. So, I believe prior to you coming to us, we had a separate resident who gave a deputation about improving the condition of the Bluff because of the trails, and my understanding was the Bluff master plan started from that point in terms of investigating how can we improve it. So then through our unsolicited bid policy, you came to council saying that you've tried to go to state government with your project, but they won't listen to me until council says we give you in principle support to chat to the state government, which that was part of that unsolicited bid policy process, which was completely confidential as well from our point and yours at that point. That was given, and then you've gone to the state government. You've tried the major status approval, but because they've told you it
They
wasn't
won't
unique.
consider major status unless you go through the unsolicited bids proposal because it's Crown land. And so I've done that, and in both cases they referred it on for me to come back and liaise with council, which I've done.
So that, I think that's where I'm getting confused.
Yeah. So now I'm waiting for the council liaising and engagement with me so that we can then go to the state government, and the Bluff master plan, Bluff consultation plan would be an ideal place to start, but it wasn't to be included. So we now have got to find some way of notifying the residents, and this is the feedback that I've had from people in Adelaide who are paying rates in the area here who want to be involved with that consultation process. So I think the easiest way would be like me going to social media and having a hell of a lot more response in 3 days at council's hand with $50,000, $40,000 in 6 months or whatever, in sending out information to all the ratepayers in the district and giving them the options, and it's up to us to work out what we want them to see, to then gauge the feedback of what they're wanting so that the council then just can do the full plan to the state government.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. So just coming back a little bit, so just for clarity's sake as to exactly what you're asking for, and specifically what the state government have asked for, because originally, so you mentioned about the previous state government told you that the project wasn't unique enough, and they wouldn't give you the approval. That's not something you can appeal. You mentioned about then the current status of the state government is don't talk to us yet, go back to council again. And I guess in terms of sort of where you're at now, you've
waited for council.
Well, I guess that next stage, where it would come back to us, is the second stage of that unsolicited bids policy. And then now that it's no longer in confidence, it's not part of that, it's that from what we saw originally, it was stage 1, and we've been waiting, I guess, in terms of where it progresses to that stage 2. So my understanding is if we're still under that policy, that will be part of that stage 2. That gets followed in terms of what the state government are asking. That's what we would then work with you on.
So I think the very important thing, what you've said and alluded to, is as their wording and the exact wording of what council have used in this Bluff consultation thing is community consultation. And this is where not just me, it shouldn't be me putting it out there, it should be council, because to me it is community land and it's of interest of this whole entire community, not just the ratepayers but to the state and the stakeholders with the tourism department, the feedback I've had from them. And so we have got to have a broad-based consultation to then help council make a decision to go to state government, and this is what I support. I want to get as much feedback as I can. abuse or not, I wouldn't care. I just wanted to work out the best result.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr Taplin, for your time. Councillor Kemp.
So, just this document is a release in confidence from the
Not
council,
the, not
or
the reports and, not the reports and attachments. The minute has been released, but at this stage I need to, well, I'm unsure as to what elements of it are commercial in confidence. So you received a fair bit of information last time it was presented, so I haven't released the reports and attachments. I wanted to wait until see whether we're going to stage 2 of the proposal. Just the minute has been released.
Thank you for that, because there's a lot of discussion going on. Just want to make sure that we release the item information.
So thank you, Mr Taplin.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time this evening.
South Coast Television, your community, your voice.